Hi, class. I hope you're doing well during this crazy time and that you're staying well. We're going to go ahead and move into your interview assignment. We're almost done here with the semester, is the good news. So, we're going to talk about interviews. And because of the coronavirus and whatnot, you're only going to have to answer in writing the answers to 10 standard interview questions. Nonetheless, I put together this PowerPoint that will hopefully help you not only answer those questions for the assignment, but will help you go on nice interviews in the future. And I hope that not too many of you have lost your jobs and all of that. Like I said, I know this is a stressful time, but just do the best you can on these last two assignments. I, of course, am taking into consideration, what's the situation, what's going on. Nonetheless, I have to follow the directives of the college, so we're moving on. So I hope you can get something from this. Anyway, so here we go. Let's talk about some interviews. There's different types of interviews in your book. Chapter 7 goes through all of these, but we're just going to focus on the job interview to keep things simple. And that's the job interview, or the employment interview, is usually the one that most of us are the most concerned with. So please see chapter 7 and 8 of your textbook. I've also provided you with chapter outlines. So if you go into Blackboard, look on the left-hand side and click on course. There's going to be a whole lot of materials in there. I'm sorry, class, just keep scrolling all the way down. I haven't yet quite figured out how to put everything in nice, neat little folders. So the assignments are, you're going to have to keep scrolling down a ways. But anyway, so here's some of the steps or some of the things you can expect. And of course, class, what you want to do is you really want to network. When you start getting out into the world and you're looking for a job, you want to keep your eyes and ears open in terms of people you know. Okay. You never know. Uh, Stay in touch with your alumni associations, both at the high school level and the college level. You never know. You may run into one of your classmates or see that one of your classmates is in a field that you're interested in going into. And so maybe they know, or they already work for a company that you're interested in. So really kind of network and keep your eyes and ears open. I ended up getting my job at EPCC when I was at a party. So my mother was a speech pathologist, and she had a lot of friends at UTEP and whatnot who were not only in the speech pathology department, but the communication department. They overlap. And I overheard this gentleman saying that he didn't want to teach his classes at EPCC in the spring. So my little ears perked up and I went over and introduced myself and talked to him a little bit about it. And he knew my mother also. And he said, "Oh, well, no problem. I'll tell the coordinator, Linda Brown, that you're interested." And so he did. And I interviewed with Linda Brown, who's the coordinator, the speech coordinator there. And I started off part-time at Trans Mountain, worked my way into a lectureship, a full-time tenure track position, and then got tenure. And here I am, all because I overheard this gentleman at the party say that he wasn't interested in teaching his speech class. So that's what I'm telling you, class. You never know. Keep your eyes and ears open. In any case, once you are interested in a job, most organizations or companies now have an online application process. And this is when you get out of college. We're talking more about um, entry level positions, but they're not usually food service and that kind of thing. There's an on well, even I think food service places have online applications. But in any case, you would go to the website, you would find their human resources section and the job. They usually list the positions that are open on the website of the company. And then they tell you how to go through their online application process. So you fill that out online. Then they'll usually request a cover letter and a resume. And so you submit a cover letter. This is also known as a letter of application. This states what job you're applying for, your basic qualifications, and a request for an interview. You always address that letter to a specific person. Again, you state why you're writing the letter, where you saw the job, what job you're applying for, why you're qualified, and then I would love to meet with you. Again, your book does have some examples of these in chapter 7 and 8 of your text that you can take a look at. Remember, you do not have to do a cover letter and a resume. Like I said, we're simplifying things because of the pandemic. But in real life, this is what you would do. There's also a lot of templates, online templates available you can look up for letters of application and cover letters. Even Microsoft Word has some templates. So that's something else you can do. And the next slide, of course, you do your resume. And if you're granted an interview, once the interview is over, you need to write a thank you letter to the person or people who interviewed them, thanking them for the opportunity. Look forward to hearing from them. So that's the basic process. You fill out an online application. You usually submit a letter of application, a cover letter, a resume. Hopefully, if they call you in for the interview and then you also need to send a thank you letter, because who knows, that might make the difference between you and another candidate. Maybe the other candidate doesn't send the thank you letter and they decide, maybe we'll hire them instead, hire you instead. So that's the process. Here's some tips. And you all, there is so much information now online. You can do a lot of research. You can also go to the Career Center, not only at EPCC, but if you go on to a university, lots of help, lots of help. They'll look over your resume, they'll look over your cover letter, they'll put you through a mock interview. Again, that was what we were going to do, but because we're under extenuating and extraordinary circumstances, we're simplifying this. So you do not have to turn in a resume or cover letter for this class, but I'm still providing you instruction here for the future. So what are some tips? Well, there's many online resources, as I said. Microsoft Word even has templates. So here are some recommendations though, no matter what template you use. Make sure your resume is easy to read. Is it easy to scan and locate information, or is there too much going on? Too much bells and whistles? You want to use a very easy to read font. You want to keep that consistent. You don't want to do a lot of crazy things. Yes, it should be eye-catching, but it should be easy to read. Make sure your resume has no grammatical, spelling, or punctuation errors. A lot of times the human resources person, they're usually electronic. They'll upload them or you'll upload them. And then the hiring committee is reading these electronically. And sometimes people are scanning, so they're just looking for the information. But if there's a lot of grammatical, spelling, or punctuation errors, they may just read the top half of your resume and say, forget this person. You're in the discard pile because you have too many errors. So keep that in mind. Resumes typically present your job experience in reverse chronological order. That means you don't start with your very first job. You start with the job that you're in or your most recent job experience first. The name of the company, the dates, and the tasks that you were assigned, and the location, by the way, too. What city was it in? So reverse chrono, because that's a typical mistake. Start with your present. You want to start with your present or most recent job experience first, and then go backwards. Resumes also typically describe your job tasks using action verb phrases rather than complete sentences. You typically do not say, I waited on tables, I handled the register, I organized supplies. Instead, you say organized supplies, greeted customers, managed inventory. So they're action word phrases. So keep that in mind. Again, you can look up some of these examples in the book and on the next slide. You should also have a list of references, people who are going to recommend you, and their contact information, either listed on the resume or available upon request. So Again, see your book and your online sources for typical resume organizational formats. Also see letter C of the Chapter 8 summary outline that, again, if you go into Blackboard and you click on courses, you'll see it there. For the letter of application or cover letter tips, please see letter H of the Chapter 8 summary outline. And one of the most common things I see, class, is people forget to sign their letter. Don't forget to sign your cover letter, and you want to look at the formats for that also. So how do you then the next part, and this is going to be very pertinent for your assignment, you're going to have to answer 10 interview questions in writing. Okay. Now, of course, in real life, you would practice these in preparation for the interview, and you need to practice these in front of an actual person. So once you know what you're going to say, you can use paper to plan it out. Then you want to get a live person to ask you the questions so you can practice them orally. Don't just do it yourself. I thought I was totally ready for an interview. Thank God I had my husband practice with me, because once he was there and I had an audience and he was asking me the questions, I would lock up. I was like, oh crap, thank goodness I'm doing this with him. And then also he would give me feedback too on how to improve my answers. So practice the standard interview questions and make sure you do this in front of an actual person when you're preparing for an actual interview. Typical interview questions, or why should we hire you? You should really practice that one. Or why should we hire you for our organization over other candidates? Anyway, some form, shape, or form, you will have that question. Another typical one is, where do you see yourself 5 years from now? So those are what we mean, and you'll see these as we go through them. Another type of question you should be ready for is what we call a behavioral or hypothetical question that's usually related to your field. For example, one that I got as an instructor: you have a student who constantly acts up in class, what would you do? Or you have a student that's failing, what would you do? So they want to hear what your philosophy is and what you would do. Now, this is also very good, class. Hone your vocabulary. You want to kind of get some vocabulary going, some active language. So here's some examples. I accomplished, I adapted, I administered, I built, I conducted, I contracted, I coordinated this program, I developed this program, I engineered this, I established it, facilitated, founded. You can read all these here, but you want to kind of start getting kind of an active dynamic vocabulary when you go into an interview. Now, be yourself, don't learn crazy words where you're trying to sound, I don't know, really well educated in this and that. Don't learn them for real, just so you're improving, so you just have a better vocabulary, better words to say. But you don't have to sound fake. You still want to be yourself. But it's a good idea to kind of get some of these words and get some of this vocabulary into your mind so that it will kind of roll off your tongue and be natural. Also, you probably have watched, many of you have already handed it in, the TED Talk, Amy Cuddy's TED Talk, How Body Language Shapes Who You Are. She talks about your body language and the messages your body language not only sends to other people, but also the messages your body language sends to yourself. So you want to do those power poses not in front of the interviewers, right? You practice it in the bathroom or the night before. So you want to kind of have confident body language and attentive body language. Sit up straight, don't fidget around with your hands, make eye contact with the interviewer and the interviewers. A lot of times you will interview for a panel. I did. And so you want to make sure, typically each person on the panel will have a question they're going to ask you. This is the way it worked for me. It doesn't work like this all the time. But here's what you want to do. So the one person asks you the question. Then you answer the question starting to look at them, but then you want to make sure that you scan the rest of the panel, i.e., you make eye contact with the other members of the panel. You don't want to just look at that one person the whole entire time. So that's something to think about. So be aware. Put your feet flat on the floor, I would suggest. And you don't want to be too uptight or like too attentive, like leaning forward, like you're desperate for the job. No, just a nice, attentive, you're sitting up straight, body language, and try to relax. Remember your breathing. Do those, get in touch with your breathing. You could do a quick little um, meditation in the lobby where you concentrate on your breathing, for example. Also, be careful of too many ums or ahs, using too many vocal fillers in an interview. You don't want to pause too much. For whatever reason, more competence and more confidence is assigned to people in interviews who kind of attack the question and have a little bit more rapid of a delivery speed. You don't want to be too fast, but that's just associated with more competence and confidence. It makes you sound polished. It makes you sound prepared and ready. Now, a few ums and ahs, don't worry about it. You just don't want to do that all the time. Again, practice some of those power poses in the bathroom that Amy Cuddy recommends in her TED Talk before you go into the interview. You want to dress for success. This depends kind of on the organization that you're interviewing for, but you probably want to invest in a nice interview suit. And women, you don't want to have a lot of uh, loud nail polish or big jewelry and stilettos. A little heel, some nice jewelry that's not distracting, that just augments everything, is usually better. Now, it's not, and usually darker colors, but let me tell you something. Not all the time. Men, your nice suits, but you know what? If you have a tie that has a little bit of color, not too loud, but that has a nice color, or women, maybe you have a blouse that's a pretty color underneath the navy blue suit. That actually is helpful. I've been on hiring committees and it actually made the person stand out for me, and it actually helped me remember who that person was. Oh, the young woman in that beautiful coral blouse, If you still want to look professional, but sometimes adding a little color is not bad. Again, you can look some of this up because interviews are starting to become a little less traditional, and it depends on the culture of that organization. So you want to do a little research into how people are dressed and whatnot at your company that you're applying for. You want to smile. You want to introduce yourself with your first and last name. You want to thank the people or the person you interviewed with at the end. Practice your meet and greet. Oh, hello, I'm Lisa McNeil. It's so nice to meet you. Or it's so nice to meet all of you. Okay, so practice your meet and greet and the handshake. Understand, and this is the real world, that you may have to go through more than one interview for a particular job. You want to be prepared for this class. Sometimes it's a three-step process. There's there's a ton of applicants. You go through the interview, you make the first cut. Guess what? Now there's a second interview for the same position because now you're in a smaller group. It's more competitive. You go through that interview, then you make the second cut and then the final cut. And a lot of times the final cut it boils down to three. Hold on, class. Sometimes it boils down to just three candidates. How do I stop this? But I'm not going to clear it. Sorry, class. This is real life. Hold on. Okay, class. I'm back. Sorry for the interruption. Always a little drama going on. Anyway, so just understand that sometimes you do have to go through more than one interview for, one position. I even had to do that in some of my teaching jobs where you interview for a couple different people. Anyway, moving on. Now let's get to what's really going to help you, because you're going to, again, your assignment is to answer the 10 interview questions, which is they're listed there on your assignment. So, and some of them should sound familiar because they're taken off this PowerPoint. So you need to practice. You need to pretend like you're interviewing for your dream company, or uh, it can be for a real job here in El Paso. But in any case, that's how you're to answer them. So here are some standard interview questions. The one you should always really prepare for is, why should we hire you? These are open-ended questions. Why should we hire you? Tell us why you want to work for our organization, things like that. So you really want to practice. And my suggestion to you is to think in threes, because typically you won't be able to have any notes there in front of you. Occasionally they'll let you jot down a few things, but not all the time. So you should be prepared that you're going to answer these with no notes. So if you think in threes and practice in threes, it helps you remember them. So why should we hire you? You should hire me because of my experience, knowledge of this community, and my commitment to customer service. Notice, class, those are three things. Notice you should repeat the question back. Why should we hire you? You should hire me. See how that question's included in my answer? So you should hire me because of my experience, knowledge of this community, and my commitment to customer service. First, I've had 2 years of working in retail at Macy's department store at Silla Vista Mall. I managed inventory, supervised 2 other employees, and served customers in the accessories department. Second, my knowledge of this community, especially the fact that I am bilingual, enables me to effectively communicate with a variety of customers. I'm able to understand their needs and direct them to the products they want, as my outstanding sales record demonstrates. And finally, you should hire me because my commitment to customer service is not only demonstrated by my sales record, but by the fact that after only 6 months in my department, I was promoted to manager. Under my management, our department has had the highest sales record of any department in the store. And I also really enjoy working as a team, and our team is really good at establishing rapport with our clients so that we have and continue to build a base of repeat customers. Boom. So see, notice it's very specific. You want your answer to be detailed. You want to give specific examples of your experience, your knowledge of the community, your commitment to customer service. So you really want to practice that one. And of course, yours are going to be different. You know, you use your own experience, obviously, but that's a question you should be prepared for. So why should we hire you? And notice you think in threes, 1, 2, 3, and then maybe 2 examples under each one, or 3 examples under each one. Okay, next. I already said that. What you want to make sure you do, class, in the interview, especially with those open-ended questions, is to cover your job experience, your education, any internships, trainings, certifications, conferences you've attended, and coursework that qualify you for the position. Typically, when you get out of college, you don't have a lot of job experience, obviously. So if you don't, you can talk about specific courses that really prepared you. And you want to get involved in student organizations on campus so that you have something to write down. You want to and talk about, you want to apply for internships, you know, volunteer work in the community, anything that you can those anything that you've done where you can bridge those skills over into what the job requires would be great. Even playing on a sports team. Hey man, you learn to cooperate with others, you learn to work as a team, you know, maybe. And what role did you serve on that team? Did you motivate people? Were you the person who pumped them up? You know, what role did you serve? You can cross that over and say, hey, my time on sports teams has taught me that I can use these same skills in this position managing people. So you see, so you want to think about that. Another question you might get is, tell us about yourself. Okay, so usually with this question, you don't want to talk about your personal life necessarily. You want to relate it to the job. Again, you can think in threes. One of the ways to organize this question is past, present, future. What are your past? You can talk about your past experience and accomplishments, your education that you've completed. You could talk about your present experience and accomplishments, and maybe any education you're still engaged in, you're due to graduate next fall or whatever it is. And then you might want to talk about the future. How is this job working for this company that you're applying for? How is this company going to help you accomplish your goals, or the goals you want to achieve working for this new company? Okay. So that's what you want to think about, your future goals, and how is this position going to help you accomplish those goals? So there's many ways to organize that question. Again, what you're trying to work in is show them your experience, your education, and any special qualifications, your accomplishments. You're trying to sell yourself. So this is not the time to be humble. You want to really highlight, not to be a braggart either, but you want to highlight and talk honestly about your accomplishments. Okay. Uh, let's see. Oh, another way you could approach this question is you could first talk about your experience. Okay, well, I just graduated from EPCC with my associate's degree, or I just graduated from UTEP with my degree in civil engineering. You maybe past jobs, internships, that kind of thing. Then you could also talk about your personal traits. So I have a lot of a good education and I have some job experience, but I also have very good leadership traits. I was da 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 da. Again, you give examples. And then third, you could explain how these traits and accomplishments apply to the current job for which you're applying. But again, prepare ahead of time and have those three main points that you make up front, and then give examples underneath. Okay. Well, I would really like to share with you, the main things I would like to share with you about myself are my experience, some of my leadership qualities, and how I think I can bring my accomplishments and these leadership qualities to this job. So first, let me tell you about my experience. So see, that's You also might get this one. Describe yourself in 3 adjectives. So here again, you want to find some vocabulary. I would describe myself as dependable, creative, and organized. Then you want to give an example of how you are or how you were for each one that's job related or school related. So I'm dependable because I've never missed a deadline, I'm on time, and I am the go-to person when my boss wants to get things done. For example, she came to me when this project was due. We were on a very quick deadline and she knew, and we were able to turn it around in one day and make our client happy or whatever it is. I'm also creative because, and finally, I'm also organized since. So you then go on and you give examples, specific examples. When you're answering these questions for the assignment class, apply them to your own experience, your own job experience, your own school experience, your own volunteer experience. I'm just giving you examples here, but when you answer these, you have to come up with your own. Another common question is, what do you know about our organization? So make sure that you research the company you're applying for. A good place to start is the organization's website, but you should also do further research. In an article I read, I believe in Forbes Business Magazine, they asked hiring people who typically hired people for Fortune 500 companies what what were the weaknesses that they typically saw when they were interviewing people. And one of those was the person doesn't know anything about our company or anything about our organization. And so you really want to know, not how are you a good fit for this organization? How can you bring your skill set to the table? So how are you better for this organization than other candidates? So make sure you do some research. A good place to start is the organization's website, but you should also, like I said, do some other research. You can look up the company, read articles about the company online. Look for the organization's mission statement, their philosophy, the success rate, a little bit about their history, how they were founded, and then explain how your skill set can benefit and further the company's goals that are set forth in that material that you've researched. Another one you might get is your greatest weakness. What is your greatest weakness? And you want to make your answer sound like a strength. So you say something like, my greatest weakness is that I tend to be a perfectionist, And so, as a detail-oriented person, I've learned that I also need to see the big picture and not get too bogged down in small things that in the long run don't really matter to clients, you see? So you do want to state something as a weakness, but you want to kind of turn it around, show how it can also weave into that how it's also a strength. It's kind of a tricky question. Here are some possible adjectives. Think about which ones describe you and why. Adaptable, broad-minded, conscientious, determined, energetic, enterprising, innovative, a risk taker. So again, class, prepare ahead of time and think of some of these adjectives that truly do apply to you with examples. Think of your leadership abilities and how you've taken initiative. Taking the initiative means you don't wait for someone to tell you to do something. You take it upon yourself and you go ahead and do it. Sometimes interviewers will throw in a creative question. I've had students tell me that in their interviews that they've gotten a question like, what is your spirit animal and why? And they'll do that just to kind of see how you handle that. And if you can sort of relate it back to job qualities, go for it. Now, the main thing, even you practice all these questions, you talk about your experience, your education, your skill set, etc. But remember what Amy Cuddy said in the body language class. The people who did the power poses in the bathroom for just 2 minutes before the mock interviews were the ones that the mock hiring committee hired, and they didn't know who had done the power poses and who hadn't. What that means is it's not, and I can tell you this from being on multiple hiring committees myself, it's not just about the answers. It's about the presence of that candidate. Are they present? Do they have a sense of life to them and enthusiasm? Are they confident? Do they seem to be passionate about what they do? Are they comfortable? Are they captivating? These were all the things that were on one of Amy Cuddy's slides, and she said these were the things that really made the difference, is to be present, have a sense of your own presence. You're confident, you're passionate, you're enthusiastic. You may be nervous, but you're comfortable. You're comfortable in your own skin. You've prepared. Be present, sincere, and authentic. Be yourself. And I know that sounds crazy, but you don't want to go in there and be all fakey. We can usually tell. You don't want to pretend to be someone you're not. You want to be yourself. Also, watch the time. The person interviewing you will usually tell you how long the interview is going to last and how many questions. So if it's a 30-minute interview with 10 questions, then you can quickly tell yourself, oh, I have roughly 3 minutes per question. Now, some questions may be longer than others, but you kind of have to keep track of the time. Also, very important, at the end of the interview, your interviewer will usually ask you, and do you have any questions for us? Don't just sit there and go, no. You need to have 3 intelligent sounding questions ready that you would like to ask the interviewer about the position and or the company. And some of these might be, so can you tell me what opportunities I might have for advancement? Or is there a lot of travel required for this position, and what is that like? What do you expect from a person who's in this position? So so those are some of the questions, intelligent questions, and make them work for you. Think about what you do actually want to know. Your book has examples of these. I wouldn't ask about benefits, salaries, or any of that. It makes you sound too, I don't know, like it makes you sound like you're not genuinely interested in the company. Of course, we're trying to get a job for money, but you want to try to have some other questions in there where you're curious about the position. It shows that you have potential and you want to fulfill it. So finally, again, do your best to be yourself in the job interview. You can use some of those anxiety relieving exercises in the fake it till you make it PowerPoint that we went over. That's why I put that whole thing together. That's one of our greatest obstacles to communication, whether it be one-on-one, in an interview, in front of an audience, is what I call stage fright. And although that PowerPoint's called Fake It Till You Make It, keep in mind what Amy Cuddy says, you fake it till you become it. You may pretend to be or take on the body language of someone that you admire, but the idea is after you do that for a while, it becomes your own. It becomes authentic. So one other thing, the interviewer may ask you at the end, besides the 3 questions, if there's anything you would like to add. So, is there anything else that you would like to add that we haven't covered? Do not waste this opportunity. This is your chance to summarize, to recap the highlights of why they should hire you. This is your final sales pitch for yourself. This is the closing statement that summarizes why you are a great fit for the organization and the position. Also, if there's things that you wanted to cover in that interview that the questions shouldn't bring out, this is your opportunity to work in any selling points that were not yet addressed in the interview.